I hope all is well for you. Today we will see what is the best thing a flight attendant has done on your plane. Welcome to the Question Answer channel, the channel where you will find the answer to everything. Thanks to Larry Buhay, Roger Townsend, Tom Allison and Donald Smith for answering this question. We'll start with Larry Buhay's first answer.
I was on a 7 p.m. Alaska Airlines flight from Seattle to San Jose. I settle into my aisle seat near the rear galley and find myself sitting next to a little boy about 10 years old. I said hello and settled in. The flight attendant came up and said the boy was an unaccompanied minor and asked if I had any issues. I replied everything is fine. We take off and I engage the boy in conversation as he seemed a little nervous. Drink service comes, I order and pay for my rum and coke. The rest of the flight was great. We talked, told jokes, played some games on my BlackBerry. He loved Brick Breaker. It was a lot of fun. As the flight progressed, complimentary rum and cokes appeared on my tray. As we were coming in for landing, the flight attendant came up to me and thanked me for keeping the child occupied, handing me an air sickness bag full of little liquor bottles. Rum, vodka, gin, scotch. An assortment. It was a nice surprise. Edit, 5,000 upvotes. Thank you, smiley face.
The following answer is from Roger Townsend.
Many years ago I was a captain on a Convair 580 turboprop flying out of Denver, Colorado. The bus with passengers had arrived below the airplane and passengers were queuing below the air stairs at the airplane's front door. The cleaning crew had not quite finished on board, so the passengers were held below till cleaning was done. A few minutes later, our lone flight attendant came into the cockpit saying, "Captain, there's something you need to take a look at." Curious, I left the flight deck and at the top of the boarding ladder, she pointed to the assembled passengers below. I have a quick glance and looked at my observant flight attendant. "Yes," she said, "look at that guy in the wheelchair." I did. "An old guy. So what?" she said. "Everyone else has snow melting on their heads. He doesn't." I descended the stairs, approached the customer and tried to speak to him, but 4 burly guys intervened. They said, "It's our dad, we'll get him aboard, no worries." Not being satisfied, I spoke to the man in the wheelchair who now had an inch of snow on his head. "Sir, good morning." No response. I reached out and looked closely. I turned to the burly fellows and told them that they had a choice. They could go quietly to the freight area where they could have Dad packed properly for shipment, but he was obviously a corpse and wasn't going as a living passenger. If they didn't go quietly, the police would be called and we'd see what charges might be brought. They decided they'd go. Turned out later that a ticket cost $99. Sending a body as freight was 6 times higher. They might have got away with it but for a very observant flight attendant. If the airplane had departed with the corpse on board, and had an in-flight emergency or an emergency evacuation, some firefighter or other first responder would have possibly risked his life trying to rescue a man who was already deceased.
The next answer is from Tom Allison.
While in Narita Airport in Japan, I was waiting for my flight to Bangkok. I struck up a conversation with a man seated near me who happened to be one of the flight attendants on the United Airlines flight I was waiting for. We hit it off very well and I mentioned, in passing, that I like port wine. We had about a 30-minute conversation before he had to leave with the other crew members to ready the plane. After I was seated and the plane climbed to its cruising altitude, the flight attendant appeared with a white napkin on his forearm, a cordial glass in one hand and a very good bottle of Dow's 40-year-old port in the other. He handed me the glass and proceeded to pour me a glass of wine. He asked if there was anything else he could get for me, then departed only to come back an hour or so later to refill my glass. I was seated in coach so the other passengers could not help but notice the special treatment I was getting. One of my seatmates wanted to know why, if I was such a VIP, was I sitting in the economy section of the plane? Anyway, it was a very nice and thoughtful experience that I will never forget.
We can continue with Donald Smith's answer.
I retired from being an educator, after almost 45 years, and decided to treat myself and my wife to a celebratory trip. We chose Mexico, the Cancun area, where we had traveled several times before, our first major vacation a few years after we were married, for example. We boarded an early morning flight from Kansas City to Atlanta, and as we walked into the plane I greeted the attendants at the door and thanked them for taking us on this trip. After, "Oh no, we thank you for flying with us," I mentioned that this was a special trip for us and the reason why. The lead FA asked where and what I had taught and my name. We sat down in our seats. The captain comes on the intercom with the pre-flight info and then says, "We have a very special passenger with us this morning," and my name and that I had retired from 45 years of teaching. I was humbled by the applause that went through the cabin. The lead FA then came to our seats and gave me a bottle of champagne, compliments of the captain, and a pair of wings. It was the greatest feeling of appreciation and true hospitality I had ever experienced. I will always remember that flight and that wonderful flight attendant and captain.
The video is over. Thank you for staying until the end. If this answer helps you, please help us too by leaving a like and subscribing to this channel. It allows us to move forward on YouTube. Here is the end of the video. Leave a comment to tell us if these answers are more useful to you. See you soon.